Just a reminder that any thoughts, opinions, and points of views expressed during this podcast are those of the individual and not of the Grand Lodge, a pendant body, or concordant body that individual may belong.
Welcome to Pen and Compass. I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight I'm hosting and really special episode. Of course, they're all going to be special episodes because we're talking to some of the best Masonic authors, presenters, esotericists, podcasters. Yeah, this is a great forum for just kind of sharing ideas and a little glimpse into the conversations that I get to have with other Freemasons that I travel with, that I see at things, that I interact with online. And tonight is probably one of the most fun episodes I'm going to get to record because I have my buddy, my partner in crime, my co-collaborator, uh, Rodney McGillvary from Indiana. So, Rodney, how are you doing tonight? Good?
Doing very well, Jeff. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Our podcast.
Podcast, yes.
Yeah, our podcast. So, well, good. Let's just get right into it. We we talk a lot. We've known each other for not about 6 months or so, and uh, really we've shared a lot of things about what we are interested in, what we are attracted to, as far as Freemasonry goes, esoterics. You're a subject matter expert in alchemy. But where did that all kind of begin with like the initiatic experience? I can go back and give you some of those things for me, and I'm sure you can too. I know you've done a lot of introspection on that, and that would be my first thing that I'm curious about is where do you think all that began for you in childhood, teenage years, adulthood?
Interesting enough, it started with introspection. When I was really young, I was brought up in kind of a generic Christian church, a Nazarene church in the small town of Ossian, Indiana, which I personally didn't feel comfortable with. I didn't really mesh with my mindset, even as a really young child. Um, Starting back when I was in elementary school, even in kindergarten, I saw myself or viewed myself as my own God, so to speak. Um, Also, and my best friend at the time, he believed in the same concept that we were our own gods. He came from a background of atheism, and my I came from a background of Christianity, but neither one of those concepts that we were brought up in meshed well with both of us. And it's just something I felt naturally within myself. And then I ended up in my teenage years getting into punk rock music. And I was amongst a lot of chaos, and amongst that chaos, I felt like I could find my true self. I felt like it was a great outlet for individualism and finding the prima materia within yourself. And it's through the punk scene, I came across one of my best friends at the time. Um, Told me that he was part of a spiritual organization or spiritual fraternity called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And kind of taught me personally some of the practices within that order, some meditation techniques and some small rituals. Nothing in too detail because he was part of a secret society. Um, and it was
So, at what age are you? Are you're still in high school, or you're like early? You're like in college now.
this is I was in college, probably maybe 20. I was probably around 20 years old. And then it was a few years later when my first child was being born. I felt this love that I never felt before, and it led me to actually joining the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn myself because I wanted to dig deeper into my own spiritual essence. And it was in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is what where I found the path of alchemy.
Gotcha. So how did you find it there? I mean, you were exposed to it, you were kind of pointed as that's one of the things that that group looks to as their foundational kind of canons or education pieces. So
Yeah, at its core, it's more of a spiritual version of alchemy. I guess kind of what like Carl Jung was teaching, a more spiritual point of view. Um, but I met an adept within the Order of the Golden Dawn who actually was a practical alchemist, and we gained a good connection. And he led me down the path of practical and not spec or as well as speculative, but more operative. And he was part of another secret organization called the Harridan Group, based out in New Zealand, and it was a operative alchemical organization. And I eventually ended up joining that myself.
cool. That's cool. Yeah, I think you've told me some of those things. I just wanted to kind of go back over that and everything. So where does Freemasonry fit in the timeline there and initiatic experiences and things like that?
Well, for those who are not aware, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn came out of Freemasonry in the late 1700s in England. It was comprised of a few members that were Master Masons over there in England, as well as the SRIA, which is the Rosicrucian Society over there in England. It's structured very similar to the structure of Freemasonry, and the temple itself is very familiar if you're a Freemason. But it wasn't until I actually dropped out of the Golden Dawn, at least temporarily, is when I joined Freemasonry, and that was back in 2019.
Gotcha. Okay.
And interesting enough, I met a guy locally here in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in the Golden Dawn, who came from Haiti. He married a missionary over there in Haiti, and she brought him over here to Fort Wayne. He was here for about 20 years prior to me meeting him. It was during a Golden Dawn initiation where I met him. And he told me that he was a Freemason from Haiti and told me that Freemasonry in Haiti is way more magical than Freemasonry here in America, and told me a little bit about that. And then once our local Golden Dawn temple started to crumble, he's like, brother, your only option next should be joining Freemasonry. And I took him up on that, and I did so.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm glad you did because that means that we crossed paths earlier this year, and that's good for me. So I guess one of the other things is, so since you brought up alchemy, where where would you, well, that's, I'll ask that later. So what do you think is your biggest inspiration kind of in general of studying these things? And you know, I kind of step back from myself and go, why do I want to keep learning these things? And I have these runs of obsessing on all kinds of different stuff, and I have to like, and I feel like you're that same type of person. And so, what do you think your inspirations are for that? What do you think that? Where do you think that comes from inside?
I guess this strong sense of just wanting to perfect myself. I've always felt that within myself. I always want to be a better person. I want to be better today than I was yesterday, and so forth. And the tools that I found within Freemasonry, I consider alchemical tools, tools that help me burn away the draws within myself, where my true self comes out. Um, we start out as rough ashlar, and we want to move toward becoming the perfected stone. And to me, that's an alchemical operation.
Okay, so when you're being creative, when I know you've written things for the Carl Jung Institute. I'm I'm sure you've been published. I know you're giving presentations all the time. You and I both are we have our profiles kind of members of Masonic instruction.com. And so when you're in that creative process, do you think do you have a combination of I'm interested in this and studying this, and like the presentation when you and I first met each other was online and you were teaching on a certain aspect of alchemy, kind of what would inspire you to do that? Like where does that come from?
Well, I guess I've met a lot of Freemasons that are unaware of the underlying symbolism of alchemy within the fraternity. It's immersed heavily within our Master Mason degree. Um, and I just want to open the eyes, take the blindfold off of us fellow Masons that are unaware of the symbols that surround us daily.
What would what would be, without getting obviously too in depth, what would be some of those things?
Oh, I will just say, and this goes along with the pen I just showed you right here, which I wrote a paper on. Actually, it was my first published paper on this sprig of acacia. That's it,
Yeah.
and that encompasses the main theme of our Master Mason degree, death and resurrection. We can become eternal beings. And some might say even in the physical form, we could live forever if we understand the internal laboratory within ourselves.
Is there anything else? I mean, I think I have some things that I could speculate that you would say, but are there any further parts of the Blue Lodge degrees? I know you've experienced, I think, Scottish Rite, York Rite, and some of those things in the last 5 years or so. So what kind of caught your attention there, or you kind of grabbed onto?
Well, I mean, within my previous alchemical teachings, there's different levels for each stage of alchemy that are represented by each 3 degrees of the Blue Lodge. Um, I could pretty much align most of alchemical philosophy within the rituals of Freemasonry and even the lodge work itself. So, I mean, we're immersed in this practical lab work whenever we go into lodge, whenever we study ritual. Um, Even through memory work, we're expanding consciousness. Um, I consider just the process of expanding consciousness, taking one step further into finding your true self, finding the prima materia within yourself.
Right. And that's prematerial being like the basics of life. Like what this like
Yeah,
what's purpose and
the true
what's and speculative, huh?
the true essence.
Yeah, the true essence, yeah. And looking towards what's this all about? What and a lot of times I think, not that this is I think that's one of those things that in our conversations I'm always trying to get down to, okay, where did this begin? Where's this kind of come from? And kind of deconstructing.
You can kind of say, like, as a whole, I personally think Freemasonry came from Egypt. A lot of the alchemical symbols that I'm studying and digging into stems from Egypt as well. Um, you could even see, like, within the sprig of acacia, within the research of that, I found that the acacia plant was used in the initiation rituals of the ancient Egyptians with the cult of Osiris. With They had a concoction they called the blood of Osiris that eventually evolved into the concept of the blood of Christ.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, and there's different within kind of the basics that I know and the very not to I guess it's a pun, the very elementary level that I know of and have kind of studied alchemy. It's it's all about like the four elements, the fifth element, um, and just the little basics that I know, and coming back and sitting through performing degree work, maybe preparing for something. It was amazing to me to start seeing things in a new level and in a new light. And that I still see all the other interpretations that I have there also. You know, it's not like you're, oh, I'm going to take this one. It's a zero sum game. I think with interpreting symbolism, like, oh, I'm going to take this one away and it's no longer relevant. It's kind of like you keep kind of building up that body of things. What do you think about that? How's that kind of been your experience and kind of
Definitely, there's so many layers that we're uncovering, even with just single symbols. You could take one symbol, and it could be an onion itself, and you're peeling off so many layers of just that one symbol. And that's one thing I love about Masonry is just how many symbols are involved with the fraternity. Because each degree, you're seeing more symbols. Um, you're obtaining more light. I mean, what are we all looking for within the fraternity? Each degree, we're looking for further light. Um, that's found also in like the ancient Hebrew Kabbalistic tradition, um, especially with their usage of the tree of life diagram. When I was in the Golden Dawn, the main structure used the tree of life diagram, and then you can overlay uh, alchemical symbols on there, Hebrew symbols, numerology, planetary, and astrology, and things of that nature, just on the tree of life itself. Um, the core of the tree of life explains how the grand architect of the universe created physical manifestation or this earth that we live in through light.
it's a
Uh,
cosmology story?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it makes perfect sense to use this symbol that shows you how we obtain this mundane reality from light, and we're trying to go back to source to find out who we are by seeking more light.
Yeah. I mean, for me, my equivalent would be kind of Genesis 1:1 to the end of Revelation and how that all kind of comes and it's a cycle and it's a circle and it's coming back. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to come back to that point, kind of like the image behind me. You're trying to have that interaction, that community in kind of the worship of Moses and things, the tabernacle, that meeting place of God. You're trying to get back to that Garden of Eden type existence.
Right. And speaking of Moses, Moses saw the burning bush. That burning bush was an acacia bush. Um, there's a lot of symbolism there, and it
Right.
ties in with the symbolism that's within our fraternity.
The I mean, it very clearly states that you're going to go find acacia wood to make the form for the Ark of the Covenant. That's where the everything that was needed like a building form that the precious metals and the jewels and everything were going to go on in the furniture of the tabernacle. You had to start there with the wood. And that's a very wow. We could you and I could probably unpack that one pretty in depth, taking the fibers of the wood and the symbol of the wood and kind of extending that within the story of the Bible, within the story of a lot of things, because that's so central, like that plant life and
Right.
starting there. So yeah.
When you when,
Uh
when you want to start building your own temple, you want to start with something with deep roots.
that's yeah, but you've also got to have that's part of the structure. You can't just have the stones or they're going to topple over.
Right.
You got to have the spine. You can't just have the skin and the muscle and in a human sense or in an animal sense. You got to have that structure, right? And even plants have like certain structure to them.
Exactly.
Again, not chaos. Go
So
ahead.
if we're using the structure of the symbolism of Freemasonry
Yeah,
to better our lives and to build our own personal temples, I mean,
right.
look at the deep roots within this fraternity. It's a very ancient one. It's one of the current ancient fraternities that really hasn't changed that much throughout time.
So when you are writing things, whenever you're trying to structure a presentation you're going to do, PowerPoint, or you're going to submit something to be published, or you're just kind of freestyling and stuff just kind of comes into your head. What's your creative process? What is that like?
I just I start out kind of contemplating, get into a state of meditation. And I feel like once I'm in a state of meditation, I open myself up for divine inspiration. And even if I'm writing or preparing a presentation for information that I already know, um, I feel like I let the divine source come through, and then it just comes right out on paper. It's weird. I even feel like a euphoric feeling when I enter that state.
I don't think it's weird. I don't think it's weird at all. I mean, that's wow, that maybe there's a tweak there and here, but that doesn't sound too much different than what happens between my ears and kind of it within my person and then kind of my core. Uh just kind of connect to things. I mean,
It's almost like you could
so
put yourself in Moses's shoes, Moses at the burning bush or Moses on top of the mountain, and the inspiration of God just flows through him, and
oh yeah. Yeah, and that's why I love those stories and especially kind of the ones that you interact with on the Yorkright side and those just overwhelming, phenomenal, um, divine intervention, like this God, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit just kind of coming over you. And because that's what we really desire. That's that God-shaped void inside of us that we want. A lot of times we're acting out in other ways, but that's the thing that we really are desiring.
right. And if you go through the path of alchemy, it's interesting when you go through the York Rite because I've noticed there's certain things in the York Rite that I've heard through my alchemical teachings. Um, I'll mention one thing, and I mean the word's an ancient word, so it's not really releasing too much information. But once I saw the Holy Shekinah is right there in some of
Kind of.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's theme a lot of the southern jurisdiction because you're if you're in Scotch Rite, you're in the northern jurisdiction. And my degree works a little bit different, but there is a big part of that is that spirit of God that actually is not it's more manifest and public. That's kind of the glory of God. This just like what's behind me, that just overwhelming kind of light and brightness and just his power. Just kind of
So some of the ancient alchemists considered the prima materia the holy Shekinah,
right.
and that's probably alluding to that essence of God that's within all of us.
Anything else about your creative process that kind of anything more to add there?
Mainly just through experience. I like to really put my experience on paper.
So this is kind
I
of,
like to give the audience a little bit of who I am, really. I mean,
yeah. Oh, you're definitely, yeah, you're when you're creating, that's one of the things that I've really thought about in the last almost 2 years is how much, and some of it comes out of some leadership training that I've done about how much you have a blind spot, how much you're biased. And there's no way to really ever totally eliminate it. Just like a lot of things on this earth and a lot of things about humanity, you're never going to be able to do that. So you've got to embrace it and understand that it's there. And I think that's why if you're going through and you're just kind of doing small talk, talking about the weather, you're kind of staying on the surface and you don't find a group of people that kind of interested in the same things as you, like a lot of us have. We're kind of building our own tribe of esotericists and kind of
yeah,
uh,
that's why new lodges get started sometimes too.
yeah. And well, sometimes that doesn't have to be that formal. It can be just a collection of people. Maybe you have a some kind of group chat or something, or every now and then you all jump on a Zoom meeting or something and talk about stuff. Um, but that's important if you're gonna grow, because if you're just reading off by yourself over here, I think you're not gonna see the things you can't. You're not gonna know the things you don't know. You're not gonna hear somebody else see it a little bit different and give you something that you'd have never, or it had taken you like years.
Yeah, because you're only reading that through your own personal experience, so you're very limited in that regard.
Right. And there's all those different levels of learning. And I think, and I think especially for the male gender, men in mankind, um, and this kind of goes back into one of the things about Freemasonry is we're experiential learners. There's no way around it. And um, that's kind of to me the backbone of the method of delivery of all these philosophical ideas, all these themes, all these symbols. Uh, so I'm trying to get this question, and I'm still wanting to kind of stay with the creative process. So, is there anything in particular? I know for me, well, there's certain bands, there's certain genres of music, there's certain songs. I like to listen to stuff like that. And that's got a scientific backing now. And that was maybe proto-science before, but now, it's actually tested. And a lot of my bands, a lot of them know are scientists themselves and use that. But what about, is there a movie or a book that you can read, or maybe go watch somebody being interviewed on YouTube, and an author or a talented entertainment person or something, and it kind of inspire you or trigger you to kind of launch into a creative
Uh,
part of your life?
I guess I watch a lot of classic films that help motivate me. I'm a big Ingmar Bergman fan. One probably my favorite film of all time is The Seventh Seal. Um, and that just stuff that's just very symbolic. Because once I'm watching these movies, I'm trying to decipher these symbols within that film. It just sparks a lot of creativity within my own mind.
And so Seventh Seal, I'm not familiar with that, or maybe I have seen it, but I can't remember.
The Seventh Seal, the gist of it is it's this Crusader knight who is it's kind of past the Crusades, but during an ongoing plague that's happening at the time worldwide, um, it gets in a chess match against death, and he thinks that if he beats death at chess, death will let him survive. But come to realize, death is always next to him, right behind him at all times throughout his whole life. You cannot escape it.
Yeah, and so when was that made?
I think that was in the 60s,
Okay.
the Swedish film.
Oh, okay. Subtitles. They speak, are they speaking Swedish and you have to read, basically you're reading a book almost with 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 the scenes being acted out
Yeah,
because
but
it's not in English, right? Or was it dubbed over in English at some point?
it was strictly subtitled in English, and just the way it was filmed. It's a beautifully made film.
Hmm.
I consider it a piece of artwork myself, and that's what art is: something for you to look at and contemplate.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
and you can have that within your writings. I consider it even like just writing, picking up a piece of material that you could contemplate. That's why I love esoteric philosophy, because to me that's art. You're reading through stuff and trying to decipher something, and it's a journey within yourself at the same time.
Yeah, I see at least so my approach and as it's gone on through the years for me, not to make this about myself, I'm interviewing you, but just to add to it, that you really it's almost like a jam session. And I think and I know in us building this podcast and some of the production work and some of the things that we're doing creatively together, it is like a jam session and it's so much fun. Like and we'll come out of it and uh like the other day when we were interviewing Patrick, he and I were in the same house and it was like he physically was just like, wow, I like the feeling that I have. It wasn't about, oh, that was really good, and I think that'll sell. I think that'll work good. It was more about, wow, I feel kind of this completeness because of the art.
And that's the beauty of doing this. I mean, especially with like-minded brothers like
Yeah.
yourself. I mean, we're unpacking our internal processes going on within our own minds as we speak. I mean, this here is like a spiritual session.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's something that I really have come to value in the way in my approach of Freemasonry and kind of looking at things really like what's going on here. And like you said, getting to the essence. So I like that whenever you said
That's
that.
kind of my creative process there. When I'm in right in the thick of writing something new or developing some new presentation or paper, that's kind of what I'm like, what is going on here? And it almost is like I start organically coming up with this stuff right then and there. And it's like I could pull from stuff because it's in my subconsciousness from stuff I've already researched, but all of it's happening right then and there organically.
So with these triggers, I got to ask you the music questions, I guess, then, because I love to talk about music and stuff, and I just like people to say, "Hey, that's not my thing, but cool," and then we try to go, "Okay, well, I'm like, okay, well, what about this group or what about this type of music?" So for you, what kind of music would you put on if you're like, "Hey, I just need to really get some focus and kind of shut the world out and just kind of get into either rhythm or lyrics or." What's the go-to for you, maybe if you're going to put something on, just to kind of.
I like some really obscure stuff. There's a band that I really enjoy that sparks my creativity called Current 93. They're more of like a folk style group, an English group. Kind of has like a weird, I guess, Middle Ages vibe to their sound, but their lyrics are extremely symbolic and spiritual. Like I feel the spiritual essence of the music just listening to it. I can feel it. Uh,
Gregorian chant meets maybe Irish bluegrass music. Is that kind of that's what I'm hearing in my head.
yeah, and maybe a hint of like Leonard Cohen.
Almost like the guys that were the in the Middle Ages. They're minstrels. that would go around and kind of play, and or maybe in ancient times, kind of the people that were playing harps and in courts and
Yeah, there's a lot of harp work within this music I listen to as well.
lyre, what is it, lyre, lyrics were the word that the little harp that the Greeks and the Romans played in their robes and their togas, and where the word lyric comes from. Yeah,
It's like music, music for the apocalypse.
yeah, just kind of flowing, kind of, yeah. So anything other than that? I mean, because it's not just one for me. I have a
I
few.
I like putting on a lot of ambient music as well, where there's really no lyrics to minimal lyrics and just a really nice meditative sound going.
Do you do like I do, go on YouTube and do those megahertz ranges or a certain megahertz, and they're kind of playing it in different notes and tones, and
I've done that. Actually, I try to use that kind of stuff for falling asleep.
yeah. Well, there's different tones, and I've talked about that as
There's
we've been
something to
trying to.
that as well, like because I try to sometimes use my sleep state for creativity. Like I'll try to like build up something that'll lead me to a dream, and then I'll wake up and then because sometimes I'll record my dreams in a journal, and then I can use that to go back as a reference.
Yeah, I guess I don't dream that much, so anyway. But no, it's cool. Yeah, I mean,
I,
I think there's somebody. I think as hopefully as somebody's watching this, they're like, "Ooh, I've never heard about that, but I think that would work for me." And I hope we give some people some encouragement in that little area. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
have you ever done that to try to memorize ritual? I've like went over a ritual in my head before sleep. I'd be laying in bed. I'd run through like the paragraph that I'm trying to memorize, and then I'd fall asleep, and the next day it's like they're memorized.
Yeah, my brain works a little bit different than that. If you're kind of asking me what my experiences are, uh, I think for me, it's more like I kind of joke about it, but it's kind of true, and it kind of works for me, or it is what it is, and it's kind of like I mean, the movie Groundhog Day, right, with Bill Murray. And do you remember, the scene at, to reset every time that he's going through Groundhog Day? He's sitting there in the hotel and the alarm clock goes off back in the old days, right? And it went straight to the rock station there in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, and it's playing Sonny and Cher, I Got You, Babe, every morning at the same time. And so for me, a lot of times, uh, that happens. I just kind of wake up and okay, what am I doing today? And some of those things. And then kind of mine's more of once my mind and body, physical, my mind mentally and physically, and I get to a certain point, probably with a shower or a cup of coffee or something like that, then all of a sudden there's these rushes of just things, like I was thinking about, I meant to message a guy, and I don't know where it came from. I wasn't listening to anything that was out of Judaism, any lessons or anything. And just the other day, I mean, like just within the last 48 hours, I was thinking about kind of comparing things, and I've been, I'm trying to learn kind of just the whole structure of Judaism and its writings outside of the Bible and the Pentateuch, and kind of what I've been used to with the Midrash and some of the other stuff. I guess I had watched while I was traveling this week a YouTube video, and somebody taught me something about that. But it took a couple of days, and then all of a sudden these dots kind of forged and manifest and appeared, and all of a sudden there's a connection, and I go, the Midrash for Protestants would probably be like the sermons of Charles Spurgeon, or a book written by Billy Graham, or something by Dots, like a famous author, or the 40 Days of Purpose, or something that really kind of either shaped, or something that maybe something that John Calvin wrote, or John Knox wrote, or Martin Luther, his right, like what Luther wrote. And those for us in a certain way are not canon and not scripture, and but they are kind of this great teaching that complements all that.
Yeah, it's still inspired work. I mean,
Yeah.
and that
And
we're
and
trying,
then
we're producing inspired work ourselves when we like.
yeah.
Guess that could transition to a question I have for you.
Uh-oh. Now this is supposed to be me interviewing you.
I know. Well, this will be a little prelude to our next interview because our next episode will be you. Uh, are you still working on your book? Because I remember you mentioning you were in the process of writing a book.
Well, yeah, we'll get into that in that episode. On the short side of it, the short answer is the non-Jeff Bennett linked answer is there's the book about interpreting symbolism that's going to be multiple volume. There is a historical fiction kind of based on the Royal Arch and the time of Zerubbabel, and kind of a lot of cool things that I want to do there. Kind of fantasy style with that. And then I have my I'm going back hopefully over the holidays, as we're taping this November of 2024. And I hope I can find some downtime, and I have like all the things that I've got a lot of things that I've written. Um, and if I dug into, maybe my mom even kept some of my papers from, like I won like a short story back in high school contest whenever I was like a junior in high school. Um, and I'm taking all those and trying to do a collected works up till now.
Okay.
And that's three projects there. Those are the book style published products. Not all the other stuff that I'm working on also. And then in June, I think around the time you and I crossed paths, my beautiful, amazing niece came into our lives, and her middle name is June, Sophie June. And it's my brother-in-law, it's my wife's brother, and is her dad, and then her mom is my sister-in-law, Kelly. And my brother-in-law's named Jeff also. So there's a lot of Jeffs in my life. And then so I started this kind of fictional children's book, and I've already written the first one, and I worked on the second one this week. And it's just kind of taking what our family does, and kind of some things that my daughter did whenever she was you know 2, 3, 4 years old, when she was learning how to talk, and she'd ask questions, and kind of taking what she did and kind of writing it for the current situation and some of those things. So yeah, that's the stuff that I'm making notes on my iPhone all the time about, along with other stuff. So
Now, what keeps you creative? What keeps
well,
the
wait a minute. That's next episode.
I know, but I mean,
No,
I'm just sparking a conversation because we could
yeah.
put what keeps us motivated? Why do we keep creating nonstop? I personally, it's just part of myself. It just feels natural, and I cannot just sit there and be stagnant because stagnation, I think, equals death to yourself. I mean, I can't really just sit here and just be bored every second of my life like a lot of Americans are.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I didn't even know, I think until here recently. Uh, that's just what I did. I just always have had it. Like you were, I mean, I'll go into more in depth in it, but just the short answer is I I I just have always been this way. I was born. I mean, it's kind of a cop out, but I don't know any different.
It is. I mean, that's how I have been. Like, I started out young, really being interested in music, and it was uh, it was kind of up till the point I took a little break from music when I started getting into my initiation processes with the Golden Dawn and everything after that. And then I would still do music here and there after that, but I was doing music all the time up until then.
Have you ever, I've experienced fraternal initiations, is the way I'll put it, that have really integrated music well.
To be 100% honest, not really.
It's a different experience. It is like that being kind of in a really awesome movie or play, or that those are initiation experiences also, right? You go into a movie, especially the modern stuff with all the surround sound and everything. You're enveloped just in the whole
That's true, and that's why
product.
I love pieces of film that you can consider pieces of art because I think if you go into a movie theater, you should come out of that theater somewhat of a changed person. It
Yeah.
should be a process of initiation in itself.
To drop a little bit on that, some of it, I know there's people that they're like, "Are you gonna go see that movie in the theater?" And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, "No, it's not worthy." I'm really selective unless I'm doing it for social reasons. Everybody in the family wants to go do that, and I'll tag along and eat my popcorn and enjoy myself. But for me, it's like there's sometimes I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna make sure I go spend the money. I'm gonna go sit in a nice theater. Maybe probably have some nachos if some of the movie theater movie tavern type things, but I really just go and I'm do what?
I'm exactly the same way.
Yeah,
I don't just watch every mundane movie.
yeah,
I can't stand all the regurgitated stuff that's out there nowadays, like the constant Marvel movies and stuff like that.
yeah,
I don't personally like. But certain films catch my eye, and
yeah,
I've even driven up to Chicago because that's the closest place that'll play movies that I enjoy.
yeah. So yeah, it has to be like a certain movie for me, and a lot, and even sometimes when when I'm talking to other Freemasons, and some of this comes from we'll go into that in the episode when I'm the subject matter. Um, but I'll even recommend, hey, go watch this movie. It might help you explain to you that degree. And that would be this one of the things as I get, and I've been in the York Rite longer than I've been in the Scottish Rite. And as I get to a certain point, um, the Scottish Rite in Southern jurisdiction with its 29 degrees that I have access to, there's just a lot there to go back and consume. And going back to my Midrush comment. I think certain writings such as Pike and Mack he did, and even some of our modern guys with Arturo de Hoyos and Joe Wages and Bob Davis and Robert G. Davis and some of those guys that we kind of have our own. Freemasonry has its own kind of unofficial kind of midrash, kind of
Oh yeah,
these not sacred writings. Jewel in Texas, our Lightfoot's Monitor of the Lodge is in that vein to me also. Um, so yeah, outside of the degree work, the degree work would be like the canon, right?
right.
And so and the script and all that, and then kind of what they've kind of come in and kind of given the bulwark or support to kind of those. All right. So you got away with interviewing me a little bit. So we're going back
Well,
to ask.
I'm glad that we're bringing in like the concept of film and why we like it because I consider this alchemy. This is transmuting yourself from one thing to another higher um, part of yourself. at least that's like I mentioned, that's how I view watching movies. If you go to a movie theater, you should see the movie in a way that you start out as the self that goes and sees the movie, and you're now a different, changed person because you've gained more experience by watching that film, and you've transmuted yourself somewhat through the process. This is alchemy.
Oh, big time. And you're not, well, you're younger than me. You may not have seen this movie. I saw it in a on like a Wednesday night in the little college town. Well, it's not even a college town, but where I went to when I was a freshman in college. The Doors movie came out with Val Kilmer, the biopic. I don't know if you've ever really watched that, and
It's
just
been a long time, but yeah, I've seen the Doors film.
that at 18 years of age, that really, wow, got getting kind of even kind of this, you know, uh, dramatic styled thing of this is, kind of we're portraying Jim Morrison and even the other band members too, and what they were wanting to do.
Mhm.
I've looked back at kind of this interpretation of symbolism, and I go, you know what, that I can probably point that out, that watching that movie and kind of some of the things, some of the dialogue, some of the lines, and some of the scenes, I still remember those at least to a certain extent, and how that was like, okay, these are the doors to your mind. This is the way your creativity and your imagination works. And I'm, that's one of the things I think you and I both promote to others, that this is something that we would encourage them to take up kind of as a practice, or even to an extent that you and I have, I think, a lifestyle. What do you think about that? And then I'm about to work in a real question.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird how philosophical you can see the Doors because that's spot on with really what we're doing here.
Yeah. So, okay. So one of the things that I had kind of as a personal question for me, but I think a lot of other people will connect with your answer. And that is, as people kind of start in the pursuit, the interest, seeking out a certain level of knowledge, basic knowledge of alchemy, where would you kind of guide them? Here's the first steps, and this is what you should think about, or pursue, or read, or
I would definitely,
those type of things.
I'd say a requirement would be the writings of Paracelsus. Um, Paracelsus is fairly easy to digest compared to other more ancient alchemical texts. Um, and he gives it an importance to the plant kingdom, which it makes it easy for a more modern person to obtain and to deal with because it gets very complicated and dangerous if you go beyond the plant kingdom. It's really easy to obtain plant materials and even the pieces of glassware that you would need for a distillation train to distill philosophical mercury, which is alcohol, um, opposed to actual metal mercury, which is very toxic.
And
Um,
you're talking about a operative
yeah,
path.
yeah. This is the operative past, but also philosophical. It's been said throughout time that whatever is done in the lab also is done within yourself, as above, so below, which is the primary Hermetic principle.
Yeah. Well, and it even goes further, right? It's also uh, and without and within.
As within, so without. That's a
Yeah.
very important attribute that people forget about.
Yeah, everybody, and as I've kind of gained in knowledge, of course, I didn't say it exactly right, but I understand the concept. And I think that sometimes helps people. So, and if you look at that, you're like vertical and then horizontal too. to kind of do some of our own little freestyle here on interpretation. So I would say, what about if
Well, if you want to go
people
to
are like, I want to
sorry, you were kind of breaking
say that
up.
again. I'm sorry.
You were kind of breaking up there. So uh, I was kind of getting at, were you mentioning the spiritual angle at all? I was trying to gather what was breaking up there.
Like what I'm looking at, just the knowledge base itself, the definitions, the concepts, meanings, to kind of bring those in and understand them at least at a rudimentary kind of level.
I would dig into, there's a modern alchemist who's really knowledgeable, named Dennis Hauk, Hauk. I would recommend looking up any of his writings. He's written a few books, and all of them are very good at giving definitions for beginner alchemists, or just anyone interested in pursuing alchemy in general. Um, Even if you dig into the writings of Manly P. Hall, a lot of people that are interested in Freemasonry tend to start out with Manly P. Hall. He's got a lot of good writings on alchemy as well, especially from a philosophical standpoint. Uh,
Oh,
uh,
and so that was really awesome how you went into where someone could start on that operative path, the
mhm.
operative path of alchemy and working on actually physical exercises, physical experiments, right? Is what you're talking about. Um,
Do it. You utilize certain elements within the plant kingdom or vegetable kingdom to elevate a certain I would say herb to its highest potential. And as you're working on that, you can also see those results within yourself, within your own spirit.
so if someone wasn't inclined to go to that detail or level and just wanted to have more of the knowledge of alchemy, definition, beginnings, kind of the what we would probably in Freemasonry compare to like the speculative side.
Oh yeah, you could go right to the godfather of spiritual or speculative alchemy, Carl Jung himself, the
Okay.
Swiss psychologist who incorporated metaphysics with psychology. He was the first of its kind, and he really delved into symbolism. Um, so I would actually recommend just Symbols of Man is a good text by Carl Jung, just to understand the concept of symbolism.
Also, you had mentioned Manly P. Hall, and I know from my own self that because I'm an unadmitted not great at reading a lot, and so but there are times that and there's ways that actually you can access for free someone reading his writings, Manly P. Hall. I think some of the societies that he founded, they still have that, and they've put out free videos. And I'm sure Carl Jung is someone's probably since the copyright for his stuff has probably gone away. They've done like a kind of a public, free to the public type
Yeah,
videos and read without any commentary, just really just someone just narrating it, right?
oh, definitely. Yeah, you could probably go on YouTube and have someone reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, man,
Right after you go to Pen and Compass and hit subscribe and like. So
I recommend doing that first. Yes.
yeah, that would be your first action. Go straight over there and do that. Shameless plug number one. So let me go back to my questions. And I think you're such an expert on alchemy. Um, I know I've floated your name in certain circles within Freemasonry, people that are what I would say active in our fraternity on a national level, strong multi-regional level kind of thing, attending large regional gatherings and stuff like that. Obviously, with your inclusion in Masonic instruction.com, which we're both on their profiles. By the way, how did you become a part of that Masonic instruction?
Um, I think the guy who started that website approached me through an email, and I was actually one of the original people on that website.
That's RJ Johnson,
Okay.
Robert Johnson. Whence Came You podcast is who controls that. That's
Okay.
his brainchild and his project, which he'll be a future. He and I are just working out uh date, time, when, where, how to talk to him about his what he does on Pin and Compass. So he's future.
Since you're on that website yourself, I was going to ask you, and I'm going to pull up this email on my phone to confirm this. Somebody from Texas sent me an email from that masonicinstruction.com site because you can send messages on there.
Yeah,
You get
yeah.
a recent message from somebody on there yourself? From
Uh, I think that was one of the things one of the bugs he and I need to work out. I think RJ tried to send me a message and it never. So maybe we need to do that offline and a little workshop on ourselves, a little technical.
Do you know Chris Galloway over there in Texas?
So Chris Galloway he has his own publishing company. I think he's a former superintendent. I know he's a high school principal, educator, and he actually has a publishing company that himself, Bill Boyd, Brad Kohanke, Chris Williams, and I have to go to their website to see who else, but they're actually all going on a cruise around late the last week of October in 2025. And part of that cruise is on the day you go out from port to we're going to be Galveston to going to Cozumel.
Mhm.
And on the day out, we're actually going to have a rented space, and myself, the four guys I just mentioned, and I'd have to go back and look who else. We're going to have about probably somewhere between 5, 6, 7 hours maybe of actual presentations and educate. It's MasonicCon 2025 cruise style, and wives and families are going, and significant others and stuff, and then the next day it's just a normal cruise, and then there's option that we may have presentations and discussions or roundtable discussions or something. A little bit of that time on the way back if everybody's tired of cruising. So,
Right on. I
so
brought up Chris Galloway though, because I got a message from Chris Galloway through that website, masonicinstruction.com, stating that this is an invite to contribute to a new Masonic education platform.
yeah, I haven't talked to him about it. I don't see Chris on a regular basis. I see some of the other guys from San Antonio, but anyway, we'll connect on that, and any
Yeah,
information, forward that to me.
I'll forward you if you want. I could forward you this email. I mean,
And he may have sent me the same thing. Usually he and I are like you. We kind of go through Facebook Messenger, work that out. So,
all
yeah.
right. You want me to send it to your Jeff Bennett or Jeff Turbine?
Oh, you're emailing it to me? Yeah. So Jeff B. Turbine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Maybe
I don't want to cut all this. I don't know if we really want this on this part of the episode or people care. Like our little chasing a rabbit here. So
Maybe a lot of spam emails soon now. Um, maybe we could have Chris on the show though in the near future.
No, I've already contacted.
Okay.
I'm executive. I'm like the producer here. Dude,
We're ahead of the game already. Okay. I get you.
yeah, I got like 5 guests lined up already. I just got it. We just got to find time when everybody's available.
All right.
Um,
Give me closing comments.
no, man, I still got more stuff for you.
Go right ahead.
Um,
I still
yeah,
got,
because we can make this couple of episodes if we need to. We can make part one, part two.
okay. We'll keep going. I still got,
Um,
still got some scotch left over, so I got time.
yeah. Um,
And let me
so
say this, I'll bring this up real quick. Since I'm drinking a little bit of alcohol here, alcohol, specifically ethanol alcohol, is considered the mercury of the plant kingdom. This is like the messenger god of the Greeks. It takes the information from a plant as it's cultivated out of the ground. It'll take the messages of that into its higher self. It's almost,
which is transformed by fire and heat,
yes, baptism by fire.
and it gives off a liquid which would be comparable to water. It turns into, right, you're boiling it down
You're
into a liquid, and
a vapor. Then it can
right, and then eventually,
condense
yeah.
down, and then it solidifies back into a liquid, which is that pure essence of the alcohol.
And then with all that, let's go. So popular brand of bourbon, but also there's a concept of when you're, especially in Kentucky and in maybe kind of whiskey making in general,
Yeah,
that
that's the same concept, running it through a distillation process.
and so the concept is there's the angel share, and
Okay.
that's the vapor that never comes back down. It burns off. It kind of just disappears into wherever. And so that's Angel's Envy. The name of that bourbon is that's what the angels didn't get, and they're
Yeah,
envious.
it's got the wings of the angel
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
floating as a vapor.
Yeah. And then we know from
Let me give your listeners or viewers a
yeah.
little show and tell here. This here, these backgrounds make for horrible presentations sometimes. If you could tell, I would take the background off, but my room is a mess right now. Let's see, slowly coming in. This here is a
Anyway, it's a big long tube with
condensing tube. And
yeah,
the vapor goes through the small tube that's inside this larger tube.
got
This
it.
larger tube fills up with ice cold water that helps the vapor condense and
Hmm.
solidify back into a liquid, which goes into a flask.
That all looks familiar of either watching a reality show or that was on and very popular, or going to can your nearest distillery and walking through and them giving you the educational tour there. Yeah, for sure. Um, so the thing that one of the next question that I have that is so degree work, the rituals, those type of things. Like what when you're engaging those and you're in the contemplative state, thinking about those, or you're trying to connect the dots on something, like we were kind of talking about earlier. Like, what happens there for you? Like, how does that all kind of work? Kind of going, kind of the degree work, the creative process, and kind of all that coming back together, kind of specifically asking you about that.
But it also helps when I'm an officer, because I try to find the meaning of really what I'm doing. Because like right now, I'm the sitting senior deacon at a couple Blue Lodges. So what, for example, what is the senior deacon doing around the lodge? Delivering messages. Now, what did I just speak of that had to do with delivering messages?
Right. Well, and yeah, both the symbol of Mercury
Yes.
is that, and but also we kind of went in different directions showing um lab apparatuses there. But
Sorry about that. I was sitting right here. I had to show you.
you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. But the angels are also the messengers of God.
Yeah, well, that's why Mercury had wings on his boots or his whatever the hell he was
Well, he had it on his boots, and I think he has it
on his hat
in
too.
some position on his back. Yeah, yeah. So and
He
what's
also
a
had the caduceus staff, the
yeah.
Hermes. Um, so there's a lot there too, because the caduceus had wings as well.
Hmm.
It had two serpents intertwining, which actually represents the spinal column in your back. Um, and there's 33 vertebrae, which alludes to the 33 degrees of Scottish Rite Masonry.
Right.
And the top of the spinal column or the top of the caduceus is Golgotha, the place of the skull where Christ was crucified. Um, this is your internal laboratory. There's pieces of ritual within your own body. So when I'm contemplating officer positions, it's weird because I'm contemplating within myself. I'm also understanding the true processes within myself that are written in ancient times. This stuff's written in the Bible, but it all starts making sense to me as I'm in lodge performing ritual.
Yeah, I think for me, there's kind of a progression. Of course, you obviously have to be a candidate, an initiate, and then it flows into I want to learn more. You've got a healthy curiosity. You start to take up some small parts, and then you progress to one of the main parts, roles, positions, offices, whatever you want to call it. And then with that, you start to know it, start to understand it. For me, I think for you both, me and you both, those things come out of you. You use those phrases, especially around those that uh, know what you're talking about, and it's kind of a game for me. It's kind of fun. It's kind of a side thing that I do, but I'm not taking it lightly, if you know what I mean.
Right.
I'm
Process has been interesting for me because right when I joined Freemasonry in 2019, I was thrown right into the fire. I was thrown right into the officer line right when I joined, and I've been moving up in different various officer lines in various bodies throughout this time. I have yet to have any time to really just um, sit there as a candidate, really.
well, yeah, I'm going to go back to the yeah, that's where I was going. I it's is For me, I've done that kind of first rung on the ladder there and worked through things. And now I on purpose, I'm blessed to be in an area that has such great ritualists that know the work backwards and forwards, perform it in an entertaining, engaging way, educating way. Uh, and so now a lot of times, I think I've told you this, but I sit on the sidelines and run lights, maybe add elements of sound or make sure all the props are there, the regalia's out in the right places. I'm kind of a production stage manager, something like that. And then I'm there as a backup for certain roles that I traditionally have done over the years, but on purpose. And that's where my greatest, and I've been doing that for about 5, 6, 7 years, still going to as many or more degrees, but taking myself out of thinking about and trying to what I'm trying not to do in this interview. I'm trying to listen to what you're talking about and not just waiting for my prompt. And kind of that hollow level, and you're not listening to, you're just going, okay, that's the last word in his paragraph, and now it's my turn to say this that I've memorized, this paragraph that I've memorized. And I think that's whenever you really start to understand. And I think I hear some guys, and I think they're getting a lot out of it. And I'm not going to say that they're not doing it like me, so they're not doing it right. But
Well, they're
if you
just
don't,
dealing with their own process at that specific time.
yeah, that phase. And I think sometimes they're reading stuff and they know stuff, and some of the younger guys, and they've gotten from like a half price books or something or online, they've gotten something that it's kind of like what is it like what's the saying? It's kind of like giving a 4-year-old a lightsaber or a loaded AK-47. They're just going to start shooting it all over the place. It's just like they're slaying and not really
I've
accomplishing.
seen that happen, and I've had actually individuals approach me specifically with esoteric content. There's certain individuals that somehow the realm of esoterics attracts um, people that are just really randomly just getting into a bunch of stuff, and they just throw stuff at you like a machine gun, and it's not cohesive whatsoever. And people like that really agitate me. It's like there's no coherence.
Ooh, I'll have to start doing that then. I want to be on that list. I'm going to add myself to that
Please
list.
don't. I've had to block some people.
So, uh, yeah, I just try to. Sometimes that happens to me too, and a lot of times they're focusing on they've read something and they know everything about that, and then I'm like, okay, well, how do you connect with that, or how do you think about that, or whatever. I think that's what you and I kind of would encourage them to do. That you're kind of like, hey, you've got this knowledge, but what are you doing? And that's kind of the same thing, right? You've got this lightsaber, you got this loaded AK-47 full magazine, but what are you really doing with it? Are you hitting the target?
They might have the knowledge here, but it doesn't transmute into wisdom yet. The light hasn't shown yet.
Yeah, for sure. Um, well, I did know you were going through a lot of leadership positions, and I'm glad you're doing that. Um, but there is a point in time where I hope that you can find, like I have, being in situations and sitting over on the sidelines. Sometimes I struggle with not getting involved, but after I kind of have that tug of war within myself, and I go, you know what? They got it. They're going to do a great job. And I just need to sit over here and it'll help me write. And a
Right.
lot of times in the York Rite, especially in the Scottish Rite, since things are written down and you're reading along with them, sometimes though I just want to watch it, not be trying to follow along with the words. Um, and I just want to like consume it. Even if it's maybe not performed up to a level that I've ever seen it, but it's still about the work itself. It's still about the content itself.
No,
Um,
I cannot wait for that day because unfortunately I'm dealing with a York Rite that is barely alive, and the only reason I joined is to help build this up, as well as I just recently joined the Blue Lodge that York Rite meets in, um, to keep that building alive, and that Blue Lodge is falling apart. So right now I'm the current eminent commander, as well as a past commander for Apollo Commandery number 19 in Auburn, Indiana. I do not want it to be a third year term, and it might have to happen.
Right. So I got a couple of other questions for you. Uh, I haven't had this in a while, but whenever I was younger, people would kind of get philosophical on me or play the what if type thing. And I think this would be a great, interesting answer from you. And the question kind of goes like this. If you took kind of money constraints aside, having to have a profession, um, and not to sound sacrilegious or anything, but just even like personal relationships, family and friends, if you could just kind of put them aside and kind of in this utopic freedom, just kind of focus on things like what would you do with that kind of deserted, what would you do on a deserted island or kind of off in your own little retreat? And I think I got this concept from uh, Rick Rubin did an interview recently with Matthew McConaughey. And Matthew McConaughey, at times, because he has enough money, unlike you and I, he didn't have to be somewhere punching a time clock every day. And he kind of waits on the next project and on purpose for some personal growth kind of reasons, he's gone off and just camped out for like 3 weeks to write on a book or something and like totally just took like a supply of food, camped out a remote area or in someone's piece of land or something and
It's interesting.
wasn't staying in like a hotel or anything. He was like really out by like really who was that? Was that Emerson? Waldo Emerson that did that with on what's that book that we were reading probably in high school. But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. That kind of almost hermit, like becoming kind of like in a hermit state, kind of out in wilderness,
That's the
Moses
that's
and
the
Jesus and
right there is the
huh?
that's the dream right there is to live a hermit lifestyle. Uh, I totally would do that if I had no other obligations and I had a stretch of time. I would go out in the desert and camp there and live there for a while. And I have a little project that I'm recently starting with a friend of mine in Arizona who's got a decent amount of land, a vacant desert land by the Grand Canyon. And we're going to possibly break ground this coming summer if we both have time. And we're going to build a physical um, place for alchemy in the desert. And we're going to hold at least an annual alchemical convocation there, maybe twice a year.
I'm
But
not surprised at all.
that
Did
is
you,
that's my current goal with any
yeah,
forget soon.
yeah. Um, so let me kind of go um and ask you another question here. Do you consider yourself a mystic?
Yeah, more so nowadays. Um, Mystic from the perspective of the way of the heart type of mindset. Um, I used to be more so into like ceremonial magic, um, especially when I was in the Golden Dawn. I was huge into that kind of ritual work and personal work. But through experience and further contemplation, deep contemplation, and more deep spiritual understanding, I consider myself now more a mystic than a magician. It used to be vice versa.
So would you label or describe yourself as an esotericist?
Yeah, it's weird because all those words can mingle very comfortably together.
Yeah. So what would you say to that? Like you feel like an esotericist, and how would you feel like that kind of manifest, or you practice that, or those type of things?
Just from an esoteric mindset of esoteric meaning hidden, I like uncovering the hidden symbols or the hidden meaning behind symbolism, as well as even the hidden meaning behind like what's the point of our lives? What's the point of this reality? I like just trying to undercover the truth, I guess, because the truth is hidden in everything.
Wow, that sounds really familiar. Yeah, yeah, and I, I think revealing, going after those things, and you said something there, and it's a very metaphorical, metaphysical type pursuit. Both of those things are that way. Um, so for sure. Um, you do a fair amount of Masonic education and presentations and trying to kind of share your knowledge in your area. You're asked to do that, like what we've already referenced a couple times. You're on MasonicInstruction.com. So what's your vision for that? What do you kind of feel like is the and kind of what's your vision? First of all, what's your definition of Masonic education? Because that's about as it's about as clear as sometimes maybe what the tax code in our country, or 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 kind of yeah. I'm sorry, what?
That's true. There's various forms of Masonic education, and honestly, at this point, with how deserted that realm is, I'm fine with all forms of it right now, as long as you're trying to teach something at a meeting. It could be anything. It could be taking out your monitor and read something out of the monitor. Just anything besides opening and closing and discussing business. Just add a little bit of a nugget of light in there. But to go beyond that, uh, Masonic education, from my perspective, would be just shedding more light on the Masonry, um, giving knowledge to other brothers, pieces of information they might not even understand themselves, and helping them understand parts of their fraternity that they're involved with, and giving them a better understanding of it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I try to
What does thou seek? I mean, we're seeking more light. So this is where we get that light is through the Masonic education.
would you maybe agree or kind of go with that kind of the vision or kind of the practice of that being a dialogue, a conversation, a roundtable discussion, not so I think we still are trying to get there, but sometimes it's a little bit too one-sided. This person got up, they did all the research, everybody kind of golf claps in their bow tie. We
Mhm.
do some toast, and then it's still, they try to do that, and to me, it's kind of going in the same direction. Still, it's still the same, just it's kind of shifted.
Even just a Masonic discussion. Some people say, including myself at times, that the true meeting happens after the business meeting. You're sitting around having a cigar and a drink, and at that point, a lot of us get into really deep discussions about masonry with each other. That is true Masonic education.
That's yeah, that's kind of why did you leave your driveway if you're not kind of
Yeah.
well that gets judgmental the way I was about to phrase that. But that can be one of
Oh,
the
I
things that
really
people
enjoy
can
just leaving your driveway, going to a lodge, just having them open, discuss business, just business strictly, close the meeting and go home. What was the point of that?
Some people get something out of that. Sometimes, well, I'm not gonna answer for them, but it's
To
what
me,
they've done.
yeah, that just sounds like a routine to me. That's it. Nothing more.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of those um, things that people do in their lives, and that's where I think where you and I try to strive, and I'd like to hear your extra thoughts after I kind of it's kind of a question, but it's kind of a statement. You know, we're at the point where we have had these great experiences, whether it be directly in Freemasonry or for me from my college fraternity initiatic experiences, which I still, as an alumni, get to attend if possible. Um, and then for you, your ancient wisdom, however you want to kind of categorize that, these other groups that are doing ritualistic things. I think you come across people and there's a percentage and you kind of you kind of invite them and say, hey, it's okay to do that. It's okay to do something other than read the water bill and go home, like you were talking about. So what's your kind of
Yeah, you got to bring,
adding to that?
gotta, you got to agitate the situation a little bit.
Yeah, well, it just depends on. So sometimes it's also just kind of waiting for it to come to you. In a particular sense, I had to go kind of outside of um, groups that I'm a member of locally, but here recently I've been so blessed. Um, it's almost like if you wish for something is the way I'll say it. Um, if you have this like desire of your heart, and then even if you're not saying it on a regular basis, maybe to a higher power, all of a sudden that just comes into your life, and you're like, hey, this is what I was looking for. And this is the thing that was missing. The pieces showed up and they actually fit. And so for I think you and I've talked about it, some of the groups and inner circle of the tribe, like, as I describe it sometimes, and you just have those people kind of pop up, and you do start going and hanging out and doing things socially when you're meeting as Masons, and then almost for me, kind of fabricating times to do that. Online has been a great thing. I mean, I think that's one of the best things that came out of a bad situation is we're a lot more comfortable doing this. And
Yeah, and we're meeting brothers from across the country, across the world that we would never have the opportunity to meet otherwise.
yeah, and that's kind of I mean, Pin and Compass is a part of um, a Masonic production, creative kind of colony forum, whatever that we're trying to build for a place that guys that want to come in and do stuff like we're doing, podcasting or presentations or whatever, we can help grow and help do some things that maybe we didn't have people helping us in the beginning
Yeah,
to form and give them a
this is a
platform and
great
a space to do
platform
that.
this is a great platform for Masonic education itself. I mean,
Yeah. So yeah, once lost, now found, Masonic production company, which I co-founded with Matthew Roger Christmas during the pandemic in 2020, and we've kind of got busy after we all had to go back to our normal lives, and then you've come along and helped me re-energize that and regenerate it and transmute it and transform it and into it's pretty cool. We're getting close. we were doing a lot of things that were in my vision and in my original inspiration, and kind of approaching um, Matthew about why don't we come in and collaborate and things. So what and that kind of leads into the question I had for you. I know just my experiences working with you on things. So what do you think motivates you to get into kind of a collaborative agreement partnership um, in projects that you're pursuing, and how do you feel about that kind of as a way of doing those type of things? We've been talking about the creative process as a singular person. Now, working kind of within a team or groups or pairs or
I think it's a great idea, because it gets us to expand upon our own personal talents and bring together those talents, and we can make this into something huge. I mean, instead of focusing on every aspect of the production as one person, you're 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 kind of limited. Now you can expand because you got the capabilities of other members combining into one body.
yeah, there's so many ways to give the metaphor, the analogy of it. I mean, you know, there's team sports, and there's a certain level of reward in achieving things and success in a team sport. Uh, there's a lot of individualism in, yes,
So
go
many
ahead.
aspects of this, though, too, because just speaking of getting more guests, I mean, now we got those that you know that could be on the show, those that I know, and the other producers we have that are
Yeah,
involved. And
yeah, there's the resources just, and I think that's what really amazed me, and I saw that is I went into I have a very the Blue Lodge that I'm a member of. It's almost, and I don't know every individual member right now, but at one point in time, if you needed something worked on at your house, okay, well, here's the best guy that I know in the lodge to do that.
right.
And yeah, and and I've had, you're gonna pay them, or they're gonna help out, or whatever. Um, who you're gonna get a ring made. Well, who's a Masonic jeweler that everybody likes and trusts? You're gonna need a financial planner in life. And so in a way, there's kind of that, to use an old term, book of business or Rolodex of, hey, who do we have and you go to the secretary or old past master or active member or something, you go, hey, I've got this need in my life. How can someone that I can trust, that's a member here or maybe a neighboring group, do that? And I think the same thing kind of happens with building what we're trying to build. And I think for me personally, it's been a great growth for me that there's times that I'm going to say, hey, this is my concept. I really want this to be my thing on some of the projects that we have going on and that we've been trying to work on, and we've had in production, because and I have a vision. I want it to be like this. And sometimes I have to step back and say, and I was even listening to um, an interview with Brian May, lead guitarist, and also I think it's been documented. He's a Freemason over in England, from Queen, the rock band Queen. And he was just like, they were like, well, tell us about the process of making an album with Queen and writing with Freddie and Roger and all these guys. And I've watched a lot of guys from that era of rock bands and stuff. And then even other like country guys that I like, and country singer-songwriters and stuff. And it's really like, so many times they're like, hey, I wrote this song with this person. I mean, Willie Nelson is like, to me, the quintessential, he'll collaborate with and do duets with anybody and everybody. I mean, and then he became more famous when he combined with Waylon Jennings. And Waylon Jennings became more famous whenever combined with Willie and Merle and Willie coming together and Johnny Cash singing, and the highway, all this stuff. I think there's great examples that we could take and go, how can I build that within my Masonic experience? How can I strengthen if I want to do education or presentations or podcasting or all these things that some of it, is going to be driven by our own hubris and ego and things like that. But at the same time, I think coming together and being like, wow, this is really fun.
Mhm.
Like Patrick figured out in our first episode. By the way, go to our channel and watch Patrick's episode and like and all that. Patrick Carr, talking about his book, Working Tools.
Don't forget to subscribe as well.
Don't forget to subscribe and like, yes. But all that aside, like talking about the creative thing and kind of the pursuit of that. What do you think about that more?
Well, I think just being creative, we're also going to learn from each other as well. So we're going to expand upon our own creativity through the creativity of each other. Um, so this is going to be a learning experience as well. I'm going to learn a lot from you, my brother, and I hope you can learn something from me as well.
Oh,
Uh,
it's already happened. It's already happened. I mean, that's we've definitely achieved that, and I think that's what I think you kind of said it implicitly whenever you're talking about doing it, giving education and kind of facilitating that. I've gotten to where I learn more than I think I teach. Whenever I'm in, even if the person doesn't have the level or the number of years of experience with things, sometimes that's helpful too, that I'm not explaining it right, or wow, they just haven't sat through that degree as many times as me and don't know it as detailed as me. And how do I catch them up kind of?
right. And that's kind of what we're going to be dealing with the evolution of this podcast.
Yeah. But even in your local experience there, or I kind of ask you some I like it's just too funny to say, but the elementary kind of basics of alchemy and how when people react to that and they ask you that question and then you say, well, did that answer your question? Then sometimes I even say, well, what did you like about that, or what did what's the thing that kind of stood out and what I just described to you or taught you or whatever. Do you ever do that kind of like feedback or?
Yeah, I love the feedback. And actually, I hope during the feedback session, I learn some things about my own topic that I'm bringing about, stuff that I didn't know. I'm hoping I can even have in the audience fellow alchemists or people interested in alchemy that maybe have their own piece of research that they could bring to the table and maybe teach me something in my own expertise. You know what I mean?
I think sometimes whenever I'm not smarter than everybody in the room, I'm just more experienced on a subject matter. I think for me, it's been healthy to hear people go, I really don't understand what you're talking about. Could you either describe it better to me, or this is what I think I heard you say, or things like that. And that's almost, I think the participants in something like that, when they're kind of on the receiving end, they don't understand how much it means to us that are kind of the one giving to them. That's a bigger gift to me because okay, I need to be more aware of that. That's whenever that
Right.
that that blind spot's getting thinner and smaller
That's
and
how you can
consuming less.
fine tune your presentation. I mean, how else would you be able to do so if you thought you did it perfectly?
Yeah, and you've kind of brought up some pet peeves and things. For me, it's just kind of like I do something and they come up and they thank me and that's all great and everything. And I'm like, especially we don't really get paid to do a lot of those things. And
Right.
so for me, I kind of make a truthful joke or kind of make lighthearted of it. And I say, well, is there anything, I'm not getting paid to do this, but the only way you can kind of give me something to take home with me is what did you get out of it? Like, what did you like about it? And try to be real open about it. And sometimes it's like, I think one of the best answers I've heard is you just gave me a lot to think about. You really challenged me either in your approach, and a lot of times I think you and I both are going to take things that people are, I try to take things that in Freemasonry that maybe they hear every time they go to lodge. It's in the opening and the closing, and I come back and I deconstruct that and start showing them the individual parts to that, and then showing them how those dots come back together. What's your experience with that?
Oh yeah, when you do that, you're pretty much changing their whole entire experience next time they go into lodge, at least hopefully. And I mean, it,
Yeah, I mean, there's a percentage of them that are going to do that.
at least maybe they'll realize what they're actually doing instead of going through the motions and not even really thinking about it. Instead of maybe reading a script that they memorized, they're actually um, doing something that's contemplative, doing something that actually can give meaning to their own personal lives if they actually understood what they're actually going through.
Well, and I think contemplative is a good term. I think interpretive, like where they're kind of switching that valve, or they're the one they're passing they've kind of almost created their own opening, and they're going through that portal.
Yeah.
Like,
Then they actually are truly going into the process of initiation.
oh, definitely. I mean, that's and sometimes they've got to kind of connect to that. Um, let's see if there's anything that I've left out. Uh,
What time is it? We'll lose track of it right now. Oh, we're gonna have to wrap this up soon, my brother, because I gotta wake up early. I got a client that I gotta visit in the morning. It's
well,
12:30 here.
okay, so edit this part out. But all right, well, Rodney, wow, it's been great. I think we have covered a lot of things. I think there's as we move forward. Oh yeah, you had a book that's that you've written, and tell us how you can get the book and the name of it. And
Finding the Gold Within, an Alchemical Explanation of Self. You could find this at bookpatch.com/ Rodney McGillvary or / Finding the Gold Within. You could also go to my academia.edu page at academia.edu / Rodney McGillvary, um, which you can see my name spelled right there on the corner of my screen.
yep,
Uh, you'll find my material there, as well as I got a brief introduction to spagyric alchemy on there. But this book here, the Finding the Gold Within, that's actually in the Carl Jung Institute library in Zurich, Switzerland right now.
awesome. Is there anything else as far as published works or places that we could find things that you've written that are out there in the public?
My other published works are within the Masonic realm. I got a couple papers that are published in the Journal of the Masonic Society, as well as I got a paper on spagyric alchemy published in the first edition of the journal titled Know Thyself that Circumpunk Lodge number 777 releases annually.
Which is a lodge you're a member of.
Yep, I am a founding father of that lodge.
Cool. So they can also find you through masonicinstruction.com, and we'll have some of those notes and some of those things uh here on this episode. And I think this is going to be episode 2 as we're talking right now. And man, it's for me, from a personal standpoint, we were talking about the collaborative thing. I think we both value each other and respect each other's opinions, and we're inspired by each other, and finding someone that you can go do projects like this with is just golden. It's just invaluable. It's a treasure to have that. And I appreciate everything that you're doing to try to move things forward. I appreciate because of the personality that I possess, that you're like, hey, let's do this, and I'm ready to go, and giving me opportunities to not procrastinate or things. And even tonight, I won't go into every detail about my day, but I shared a little bit of I woke up in a different city within the state of Texas, and as large as it is, I had about a 5 hour drive before we got on here and walked in the house, and it was like, you're gonna go record now and do stuff, and I'm like, we've got to.
Yeah.
It's a good time.
That's what I'm
So
thinking too, brother. It's been a long, exhausting day from my end, just doing mundane work, but I stayed awake in order to do this with you, and I
well,
I honestly wouldn't have been surprised at all, and I would have understood if you wanted to get some sleep right when you got home, but I was really happy to hear that you wanted to still do this tonight.
yeah, I got energized like right at the end of that drive. But um well, I'm excited about where we're going with this. Uh Pin and Compass is our project together, you and I, and I'm glad you get to talk about your kind of some of your vision tonight, and or on this episode, and talk about your book a little bit. And it was great to get to, even though we've shared a lot about each other, get to know you on a deeper level. And I hope everybody watching really enjoys it also, with this episode 2 of Pin and Compass. So with that, any last words, and then we'll end it there.
Thanks for having me on again, Jeff. I appreciated the discussion with you. It was a pleasant adventure this evening, and I hope to get to know you a little bit more next episode. Episode 3 on Pen and
So
Common.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that might be hopefully that's not our last episode.
I hope not.
After we interview me, it might be like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So anyway, but we'll have a good time with it. Um, so that's gonna wrap us for episode 2 with Rodney McGillvary talking about alchemy, Masonic education, and just a lot of great things that we covered tonight in this episode. So thank you so much, and enjoy, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Until next time, keep seeking more light.